1. I was taking a trip back to China from Ottawa because my grandparents are seriously ill and I have to take care of them. I had to take a flight from Ottawa to Vancouver, then Vancouver to Changchou, a city in China, where I'll make a final transition flight back to my hometown. After waking up at 2 a.m. and taking the flight to Vancouver, I was left with a time gap of 6 hours at the airport with nothing to do. With a huge suitcase and heavy backpack, I sat down on one of the waiting lunch benches. Here's where the story begins. Tired and sleepy-eyed, I was ready to enjoy the bottle of Coca-Cola that I just bought from a nearby store 5 minutes ago, before this fat fuck of an EM with her kid decided to park their arses next to me, with most of the waiting lounge being half empty. EM was bigger than Gabriel Iglesias in terms of size and smelled like 2 kilograms of decomposing cheese. EK was a smaller version of his mom. EM started texting on her phone while EK ran around the lounge picturing himself as an airplane preparing to take off. Eventually, EK got tired of his running around and squeezed his face against the last window that separates him from the actual airport, and screeches like a marmot whenever a plane takes off or a towing truck goes by below. I was listening to music and trying hard not to faint from the strong odor that oozes out of EM's body. Never for once in my life would I like to ask a woman to apply deodorant until today. I've had enough of this fuckery and went to buy something to eat while EM switched from texting to a really loud phone call. When I got back with a chicken sandwich was when things started to get really bumpy. I sat myself a couple seats away to avoid the smell of EM. Just as I put the sandwich down and was about to take a swig of Coca-Cola, EK came out of nowhere and grabbed my sandwich. It caught me by surprise that I choked on the Coke I was drinking. He opened the wrapper and took a bite with perfect fluency, as if he's been doing the same with McDonald's takeaway meals ever since he learned to walk. I froze out of shock for a split second and then it snapped. I walked up to EM, who was still on her loud phone call, and cleared my throat. The following conversation looked a bit like this. "Excuse me, ma'am, but your kid stole my sandwich from me." "Hold on, I gotta deal with something." She turns to me. So he stole my sandwich. "It's just a sandwich. My son needed it more than you." "Did you realize that your kid stole someone's sandwich without their permission or consent and just ate it?" "My son likes it, so he's going to eat it. What are you going to do about it?" I glanced back just in time to see the EK gulping down the Coca-Cola that I bought. Although I'm trying hard to suppress my anger at this point, I'm still trying to sound as polite as possible. I didn't want to lose my cool until the last second. "Okay, ma'am, I just had 2 flights back to back, and my day just happened to be ruined by your son. Since he's eating my sandwich, and I can't force him to puke it out, can you at least pay for it?" Mind you, that one chicken sandwich cost around $5 at the airport. Normally, I would let it slide, but now that the brat's drinking my Coke as well, it brings the sum to around $7. I'm not mad about me losing my money, but I'm just pissed at the attitude. "No, my son's a little angel. You would be glad to donate your food to him since he's more sacred than you." Trying to pull the wonderful child card? Are you on crack or something? Your son literally took my food and you're gonna act like you're dumb? I'm calling security. "Go ahead, I'd like to see who would believe your story." What she didn't know was that I had all the receipts from the purchase and kept them in my backpack with me. Bad luck for me, there's no signs of guards anywhere, nor even a cleaner was nearby. When I got back to the lounge, a man was standing next to EM and EK, wearing a concerned look on his face. I realized he must be EM's partner or husband, so I went over and started speaking. "Hi." "Oh no, you don't, you little shit. My husband is a good..." Her husband cut her off. "Sir, what's going on?" I explained everything to Mr. Cool while EM tried to cut me off multiple times with "but" and "bullshit." I then showed the receipts that I got after each purchase, and then made it clear that I don't want to waste time and I just want my money back. Dude literally handed me $20 and told me to keep the change. We exchanged contacts and he apologized for his wife's behavior, while EM's constantly screaming to try and cut us off. I sat down on a distant seat while I could still hear EM arguing loudly, and Mr. Cool yelling at her about her behavior. "You can't tell me what to do. I'm your wife." "Yeah, I pay for the goddamn bills. All you do is sit your ass at home all day and watch something I can't remember." A few months later, I texted him and thanked him for what happened. I did not expect him to tell me that he's going to be going through a divorce soon, because the bitch was cheating on him with some Colombian guy with a long schlong. He's planning on gaining full custody of EK too, because he feels like his mother isn't really the best role model for him. This was like late 2020, and I got an update from him 2 months ago, telling me that the divorce went through and he took full custody of EK. Two. This happened about a year ago when the new Star Wars area opened up on MGM. For the occasion, I dressed up in kind of a hooded wrap dress with black leggings, boots, and a white tank top. It was not a costume, but it is very similar to what a Star Wars Jedi would wear, but not quite, as it's blue with many patterns on it. Getting there early, I entered the park ready to enjoy my time, meet all the new characters, look at the new merchandise, sample foods, and so on. It was about midday, and I thought it was going to end in a pretty good note. I was wrong. As I stopped for a moment to look at my new area, as I tried to decide which angle the picture would look better, I feel somebody yank me by my arm. Startled and even triggered, I let out a scream as I yanked my arm away.
Are you deaf? I've been trying to get your attention for the past 5 minutes,
I heard. As I calmed my breathing, and my heart which was ready to explode out of my chest, I looked at the person who grabbed me to find it was an old lady. She was pretty overweight, her hair was all sorts of crazy, as if she got her hair cut from an insane asylum, then proceeded to get hit by lightning to cause it to stick up in a crazy way. This was Cruella de Vil in the flesh. Next to her was most likely her granddaughter, probably around 12 or 13. It was hard to tell, as she was quite skinny. Her hair was orangey red, extremely curly, and sticking up a bit from her ponytail. A scowl on her face as she looked ready to blow up from the lack of patience. "I'm sorry?" I asked, a little confused.
Sorry, you are right. I thought people like you would have been trained better, snapped Cruella de Vil.
Trained? I asked, even more confused, as I had no idea what they were talking about.
Never mind, Anastasia. Please stand next to Ray so we can take a picture before the line shows up,
said Cruella, ignoring me. Wait, what? I thought in my head as I wondered if this was some kind of joke. I was not Ray. I don't even look like her in the slightest. How could anybody have mistaken me for her? Wow, wait, you're kidding, right? I asked, baffled at the idiocy before me.
I know you're on your break, but please get into character, Ray,
said Cruella as she looked down at her phone, probably trying to get the camera app. Ray, no, I'm not Ray. I'm just a guest. Disney bounding, I tried to explain.
Sure you are. Now take a pose and smile, Ray.
Before I could try to reason with the person again, Anastasia immediately went to my side and grabbed me in a hug that extended around my arms and chest. This was a huge no-no for me. I do not like being hugged. I don't even like being touched without consent. I immediately reacted, screaming and pushing Anastasia away. A little bit harshly, but I could not help it, as my skin began to crawl due to the contact without consent, as I continued to scream like a banshee, and began to scratch myself like I was covered in fire ants.
How dare you,
began Cruella, but she was not able to say anything else as people gathered around, demanding to know what was going on. Soon, an actual cast member arrived and asked, "What is going on?"
Oh, thank God, this actress assaulted my baby. We only wanted pictures with her, and she assaulted us. Yes, she pushed me, said Anastasia,
looking between the three of us, them looking angry at me as I managed to calm down, but was still shaking. Looking at me, he said, "Is that true?" Sir, they thought I was one of the characters, Ray. I explained that I was not, but they did not listen and touched me without my consent. I explained as best I could as I was still shaking.
Liar! I want Ray fired immediately, demanded Cruella.
Ma'am, she's not Ray. She does not even work here. She's a guest like you, said the cast member. As he said this, he had a look on his face that said, how can a person be this stupid?
Stop trying to protect her. Look at her clothes. She's obviously Ray,
yelled Anastasia as she pointed at me. Ma'am and miss, I can assure you she is not. Now you have two options. Either leave this poor girl alone and enjoy your day, Or we can have you escorted out if you decide to continue harassing a park guest. It's your choice," warned the cast member. Looking angry, Cruella turned and left with Anastasia, both fuming and furious at what happened. "I'm very sorry this happened to you. Some people don't know how to control themselves when they see their favorite character, or think they see their favorite characters." The cast member told me the last part more as a joke than anything. The cast member stayed with me through my whole visit to make sure Cruella and Anastasia did not bother me. But even after what happened, both me and the cast member have no idea how they could have confused me for one of the Ray actresses. 3. I, a 23-year-old at the time, had been babysitting these two kids for quite some time, about 6 months. The kids were okay enough. One was 10 and the other 7, 2 boys. Although being kids, they had some attitude issues. An important note is that I'm autistic, mildly, barely on the scale, but there are certain things that affect me. Judgment skills is one of them. So I wasn't entirely aware that having so many attitude issues at their ages wasn't really a good thing. I didn't really like it, but I was getting paid decently, and the kids never caused any major issues. So I just let it go and kept up the babysitting. One day the kids wanted to go out to play, but I couldn't let them because the weather radar was showing that it was going to be storming pretty soon. I'm not talking just heavy rain, it was the works: thunder, lightning, rain, some pretty strong winds, dead in the middle of summer. What was I supposed to do? So I told them no, and they seemed a bit down and irritated, but didn't entirely throw a fit. I thought it was fine. Until about 20 minutes later, I got a call on the phone from EM. She started yelling at me right off the bat about, "How dare you not let my kids go play outside?" and that I was so horrible to my kids. Meanwhile, I put up with their multi-tantrums every day, Monday through Friday, for about 5 hours each day, totaling to a minimum of 25 hours. Sometimes more if I was needed on weekends, because their kids weren't taught how to be decent human beings to people taking care of them and treating them decently. So here's how this conversation went to the best of my memory. "Why did my kid call me saying they couldn't play outside? What's wrong with you?" "I'm sorry?" "My kids called me and said they were upset because you told them they couldn't play outside." "Yeah, because it's going to be storming pretty bad soon." By now it was already starting to rain outside, along with a bit of thunder. "Let them outside to play, now!" "I can't do that, it's starting to rain outside, and it's also now thundering and lightning." "I don't know what you want me to do about that." "Why are you being like this? I pay you good money to take care of my kids, so let them out to play now." Also, yes, she started raising her voice at me. Need I mention she worked at an office job as an accountant at that time. "EM, I can't do that. It's lightning outside. It's dangerous for them to..." She cuts me off and starts going off on a literal tangent about how I'm causing them emotional trauma and how they'll have PTSD from this, on and on and on. And I swear my ears are going to start bleeding from how loud she's getting. I turn my attention to the front door because while she's on the phone screaming at me, these two kids have run outside to go play in a literal thunder and lightning storm. She eventually gets off the phone with me, and I'm looking forward to going home because, oh my god, it's only been an hour and a half of me being there for the day. The kids eventually come back in, change their clothes, which I have to reluctantly pick up off the bathroom floor because they just left them there. What nice children. Eat some lunch, then go upstairs to hopefully watch TV or play some games together. Then here it comes, EM calls me again. "Why are my kids soaking wet now? Why is there laundry that I have to do when I get home?" "EM, they went outside to play in a storm. I couldn't keep them from going out because you were busy yelling at me and they snuck out." "You shouldn't have let them outside. Now they're going to get sick, and it's all your fault." I'm just sitting here in stunned silence, mouth gaped open, because I'm just in shock at this woman's absolute stupidity. A few seconds pass while I'm busy processing what she's actually said to me. Think of that gif of the woman with the math equations flying around. That was me in that moment. "So let me get this straight. You wanted me to let them outside to play, and now you're complaining because they did so anyway, and they got wet because, as I told you earlier, it was raining and storming out." She went dead silent, because I guess she was dumbfounded that I was somehow not dense or dumb enough to fall for her trying to berate me for keeping her kids safe. I don't know what she was trying to do. I basically ended that conversation by telling her that I was just doing my job as a babysitter, and she hung up on me because I guess she couldn't come up with anything else to yell at me for. She got home later on, ducked my pay entirely. It was $10 an hour for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, to absolutely nothing. And I told her I was quitting because I couldn't deal with this anymore. Her kids would throw mini tantrums every single time I was there, then act all sweet and lovely to her the second she got home. There was one separate time, 3 weeks before I quit, or this incident, where I was dealing with some pretty upsetting stuff and the kids stood there and mocked me for crying. Even before the pay being eliminated, I was already questioning whether or not it would be worth to continue babysitting for her. But that day, plus the pay, pretty much helped me make up my mind. She tried to call me the next day to get me to come back. How her kids are just perfect little angels who are the sweetest little things. So I should be grateful to get to watch them. But I told her no, and that was that. I blocked her number after this, and I never spoke to her again. I never got paid for that final day I worked, but I didn't even care. I didn't want this rich EM's money because I was, and believe I still am, too good to deal with ridiculousness. Side note, dealing with these two kids and their entitled mother caused me to become more withdrawn, and some of my issues with judgment calls or how to handle certain situations only got worse because my mind struggled enough as it was, so this situation definitely didn't help. I found out that this situation caused some things to get worse when attending therapy years later. Imagine treating someone you know is autistic with such garbage behavior. I'm so happy I quit. 4. I'm a single mother of 2 teenage boys, and I live in a nice, quiet neighborhood at the end of a cul-de-sac. Every house on this street has a garage, and I'm the only one that has a single car and parks in my garage. Almost every house in this street is a family home with at least 3 cars, but most have more. Some will park in their driveway, and some will park on the street. It's never been a problem since everyone is considerate on how they park, and no one has ever had an issue with getting in and out of the street. In addition, I tend to keep to myself. I'm not antisocial, and I wave and say hello to my neighbors when I come and go from my home, but usually when I get home, I stay home. So I say all of this to give you an idea that I'm a homebody, and my neighbors pretty much know that when I get home, I stay home. About 6 months ago, the house to my right was sold to a larger family that consisted of Dad, Mom, and 3 teenagers. The day they started moving in, I made a point to go over to the edge of the property to wave and greet them in order to welcome them to the neighborhood. They were friendly, and I was happy to have such nice people move in next door. Also, note, this family used their garage for storage, and thus parked their 4 cars in their driveway. I didn't know it at the time, but their youngest son was just months away from his 16th birthday. Now that you have a little information, onto the story. Today is Monday afternoon, and this story began last Tuesday. Around 6 p.m. on Tuesday, I received a knock on the door, and it was neighbor Dad. Following is our conversation.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm talking through the screen door as I say, "We're okay, I'm sorry I can't open the door, but my youngest came home from school with a sore throat today, so I'm not sure what's going on with him. How are you, and how can I help?"
I'm sorry to hear that, I hope it isn't anything serious. We're okay, my son just turned 16 a few weeks ago, and I'm sure you saw the new truck we bought him.
Yes, I did. It's such a pretty truck, and big. Does he like it?
Yes, he does. It's what he wanted, so we got it for him. It is very big, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Let's take a brief pause here and understand that when I say this truck is very big, it is very big. It's an F-350. I personally think it's too much of a vehicle for a kid learning to drive, but it's not my money, so to each their own. I don't understand.
We have been having complaints from some of the other neighbors that his truck is so big that they can't get around it when they're driving through, and we're afraid that it might get sideswiped if he continues to park it in the street.
Yeah, I have had some intense moments trying to get around it myself, but I'm sure he'll get better at parking as he gets more experience. I'm not sure what this has to do with me. I haven't complained.
Oh, I know you haven't complained, which is why I was going to ask if he could use your driveway to park, since you don't use it.
I do use my driveway when I leave and come home. I can't get to my garage without using my driveway. Besides, I have issues with depth perception, and your son's truck is so big, it will take up most of my driveway, and I don't want to be responsible for any damage that might happen while it's on my property.
Well, we will make sure that he parks so that it will allow you to come and go without any issues.
That isn't possible. The only way he can park to allow me to get around him is if he parks halfway on my lawn, and that wouldn't work because then he would damage my lawn. If you're concerned about this truck getting damaged, then why don't you let him park in your driveway, and then one of your smaller cars can park in the street?
We've already discussed that, and we would have to park 2 cars in the street in order for him to use the driveway. It would be very easy for him to park in your driveway, and I can assure you that it will not be an inconvenience to you. You don't even use your driveway.
I'm sorry, but the answer is no. I'm not going to be responsible for his vehicle on my property, and I need to be able to come and go without worrying about someone else's property.
You're not being very neighborly. I thought you were a nice woman. You don't use your driveway, and this would benefit the whole neighborhood.
Listen, I told you no, and I do use my driveway every time I pull into my garage and every time I leave. I'm sorry you don't have enough parking for all your vehicles. I'm sure it's frustrating. But it's not my problem that you decided to buy a vehicle that didn't fit your property. Now, while I also find it irritating to try and navigate the road with that truck in the way, it is public parking, so I deal with it. I will not have anyone else's vehicle parking on my property now. If you don't mind, I have a sick kid and need to get back to him. Have a good day. With that, I closed the door and then looked at the peephole and saw him give me the bird before he turned to leave. I just shook my head and had to take a moment to understand that I actually just had that conversation. I then loaded up my son in the car and left to take him to minor emergency to get him checked out. All tests came back negative, and I was told he probably had a run-of-the-mill virus and to keep him home and do self-care. Was told to bring him in if he got worse, but not to worry. I went to work the next day and told my co-workers the story of my neighbor's request, and they were shocked. I had one co-worker suggest that I send an email to my homeowners association to explain what happened, just to get it on record because it was such an odd request. I took her advice and typed up an email that day when I was at lunch and sent it. For those who want to know, it was just an FYI email, not a complaint email. It basically stated that my neighbor made a request to park on my property, and when I declined, he got mad at me, and I wanted it on record just in case anything ever happens. So very glad I did. So Friday comes, and my youngest son has been home sick since Tuesday afternoon. When I got home Friday evening, I checked him, and he had begun to run a fever and was complaining of several other things. I had been doing self-care with him since Tuesday, and he didn't appear to be getting any better. Around 7 p.m., I decided to take him back to minor emergency, and loaded him up in the car. I opened my garage door, and I was absolutely shocked to see that very big F-350 sitting in my driveway, blocking me. I can't describe how angry I was to see that vehicle sitting there. Now, before anyone starts asking me how I didn't know it was in my driveway, it's because my street is very busy, and cars are coming and going all the time, and unless someone knocks on my door, I don't bother watching every vehicle that drives up and down the street. The only window that can see my driveway are the ones in my kitchen, and I keep those curtains drawn and never look out of them. So I get out of my car and stomp over to my neighbor's house and bang on their door. Neighbor Mom answers the door, and this is the conversation.
Can I help you? You're interrupting our dinner.
Your son parked in my driveway after I told your husband he couldn't. I need to take my son to minor emergency, and that truck is blocking me in. It is at this time that Neighbor Dad walks up behind Neighbor Mom and proceeds to talk.
He isn't blocking you in. You can get around him.
No, I can't. You need to move that truck or I'm going to call the police and a tow truck. I need to get my son in to see a doctor. Neighbor Dad turns to call for his son and then turns back to me.
He's not blocking you, but I will have him move it.
It doesn't matter whether you believe he is blocking me in or not. He is not allowed to park in my driveway. No one is allowed to park in my driveway. And if I find an unauthorized vehicle park in my driveway again, I'm not going to bother to knock on your door. I'm going to have it towed. It was at this time I saw the son arrive at the door with his keys in his hands, and I turned to leave and head to my car, to wait for him to move it, and I heard him call me that famous B word every woman has heard at least once in her life. I ignored him and headed to my car, and watched as he got in, and after some effort, was finally able to back out of my driveway and parked his truck in the street a little way down the road. I was able to leave and take my son to minor emergency where, as we waited for several hours to be seen, I shot off another email to my homeowners association about what had just happened. I want to advise the homeowners association had already responded the day before that they received my email, made note of it, and advised my property was my own and I could give or deny access to it as I wish. It was this email string that I responded to while waiting for my kid to be seen. Again, all tests administered to my son came back negative, and I was told it was a run-of-the-mill virus and he would be fine. The virus just had to run its course. I took him home and called it a day. Saturday evening, my oldest started complaining of a sore throat, and I was starting to feel poorly myself. My youngest appeared to be getting better, so I figured that whatever he had, that we were getting, so we stayed in all day Saturday and Sunday. Sunday evening, at about 5:30, my oldest son spiked a fever, and while it came down a little, it didn't come down enough, so I loaded him in the car and off to minor emergency we went. The only one I could find that was open on Sunday at this time was on the other side of town, so I had to drive 20 minutes just to get there, and we ended up waiting for 3 hours just to get in the door, and another 45 minutes till we saw the doctor. After a few more hours and all of his tests came back negative, the doctor did state that she could hear some wheezing in his lungs, so she prescribed an inhaler to help him, but basically told me the same thing, that he has a run-of-the-mill virus and to let it run its course. I had to drive even further to the only 24-hour pharmacy available to pick up the inhaler, and we did not get back to the house until almost midnight. Let me set the scene for you. My son is half asleep in the passenger seat and complaining that he just wants to go home, and I am exhausted and feeling drained and having coughing fits myself, and I'm just looking forward to going to bed, when I rounded the corner and saw that truck sitting in my driveway. I couldn't even pull in because he was blocking me, and I also noticed that he was parked partially on my lawn. I was so mad I could hardly see straight. I googled and found a 24-hour tow truck service and explained that I had an unauthorized vehicle on my property that I needed towing. The woman said it would be about 30 minutes before they could get a truck there, and I said that was fine. In the meantime, I walked my kid to the house and put him to bed, and then quickly went outside and took a picture from the street to show how much of the driveway he was taking, and that he was also parked on my lawn. I couldn't understand why they would park in my driveway again after I had told them no. And the only thing I could come up with is that since there had been no activity at my house for hours, that my neighbors probably assumed I was in for the night and wouldn't notice the truck in my driveway. This is pure speculation, but it is normal for me to be in for the night, especially after 6 p.m. I don't know if they missed me leaving or just saw me leave but figured I was home, but it really doesn't matter, because I told them they couldn't park on my property. It was about 12:30 a.m. when the tow truck arrived, and I have expected my neighbors to come running, but there wasn't activity from them, and the driver left with the truck without incident. I went in, shot off another email to my homeowners association, along with pictures, and explained that I had towed the vehicle and then went to bed. At 6 a.m. this morning, I woke up to someone banging loudly and rapidly on my door. I didn't have to look, I knew who it was. I grabbed my phone, hit the video record button before I opened the door. I looked through the peephole and saw neighbor Dad and his son at my door. I opened the door, and following is the conversation.
"Where's the truck?"
"It was towed. You can call such and such company to make arrangements to get it back."
"You didn't have a right to tow it. You're going to pay to get it back."
"I had every right to tow an unauthorized vehicle on my property. I told you not to park on my property, and you did it anyways. It blocked me from getting in my driveway last night. I told you I was going to have it towed after the last time you parked without my permission, and I won't be paying anything to get it back."
"You stole my truck, you fucking bitch! And I'm calling the police. I'm going to sue you."
"Go ahead. In the meantime, I'm sick, and I'm going back to bed." I closed the door and stood there for a moment. I looked out the peephole, and they were still there. Neighbor Dad started banging, and was also ringing my doorbell non-stop. He knocked and rang my doorbell for another 4 minutes before he gave up. I'm still recording all this, and I didn't turn off the video until he was gone. I turned and saw my kids standing there. The noise had gotten them up, and I just advised that if they were still feeling ill, just go back to bed, because that was where I was going. Now, I will honestly say that I didn't think he would call the police, but he did. It was about a half hour, I wasn't really looking at the clock, that I heard the doorbell ring. I got up and looked through the peephole, and a police officer was there. I opened the door and had the following conversation. "Good morning, ma'am. Sorry to bother you, but we had a report from your neighbor. He's stating that you stole his son's truck by having it towed from the street, and that we need to talk to you about this issue." "Good morning, officer. My neighbor is only telling you half the story. I had his truck towed this morning from my driveway when I returned home from minor emergency. I couldn't get into my driveway, and I have already told him twice that him and his family can't park on my property. This issue started last week, and I have emails to my homeowners association, pictures of his truck parked in my driveway this morning, and a video of my neighbor's visit this morning where he called me names and told me he was going to sue me and call the police. I can show you if you would like." "Yes, so you're saying that the truck in question was on your property without your permission, and that you had it towed?" "Yes, last Tuesday he asked if I would allow his son to park in my driveway. I told him no, and he got mad and flipped me off before leaving. Then Friday evening, when I was leaving, I discovered his son had parked in my driveway and I couldn't leave my garage. I went over and demanded they remove the vehicle and told them at that time I would have the truck towed if they parked on my property again. I came home late this morning and the truck was in my driveway, so I had it towed."
I just want to confirm, you were saying that it wasn't parked on the street but in your driveway, and you have proof of this?
"Yes, sir. If you'll give me a minute, I'll print off the emails that I sent to the homeowners association that documents the issues, and I will also show you the picture and video as well." With this, the police officer said that he would wait for me to print everything off. Once I got the emails printed, I returned to the door, opened my Photos app to the officer to show the truck in my driveway time-stamped, handed my phone and printed the emails to him. After looking at the photo, where you could clearly see my house in the background, the truck blocking the entrance, and that it was partially on the lawn, the officer then read the printouts. He handed my phone back to me and asked me to open the video that I had referenced, while he went over to the lawn to look. I watched him look at the area and then take a few photos. I could see my neighbor and his whole family standing in their driveway watching me and the nice police officer. Nice police officer returned, and I handed him back my phone with the video ready, and he watched it. After he finished watching the video, we had the following exchange.
"I'm going to need a copy of that photo and video for my file. If I provided you with an email, would you be able to send it to me?"
"Yes, sir, no problem."
"I have enough information from my files to determine that the vehicle was not on public property and was in fact on your property. I have made a note that you did not give permission for the vehicle to be parked on the property. Based on the emails you gave me, with dates and time, it appears you did in fact advise your neighbor to not park on your property. Would you like to file a trespassing report for this incident?"
"Oh, absolutely."
"I can see you're not feeling well. You can either file this with me now or you can go online."
He takes a business card out, writes on it, and hands it to me.
"Here's my business card with my email address that you need to use to send me your photo and video, and the case number is on the card as well. Do you want to file with me now?"
"Honestly, I'm exhausted and would prefer to file online later."
"Okay. Reference this case number when you email your evidence and file the online report. Also, reference my name in the report. One more thing. I saw in the video where neighbor dad stated he was going to sue you for having the truck towed. He can sue you if he wants, and I would advise that you keep all the evidence you provided me with today, along with the case number I just gave you. Give it a few days, and you can request a copy of the report, and you will want to keep that as well. If you decide to file an online report, you will need to keep a copy of that as well. I'm going to go talk to neighbor dad now, and sorry to have bothered you."
"Thank you, officer. I'm sorry you had to come out."
"Have a good day, ma'am. Get some rest."
With that, I closed the door and went back to bed. However, I'm so mad that I didn't get any sleep. A few hours ago, I sent my photo, video, and other copy of the Homeowners Association emails to the email address the police officer gave me, and then saved all that information just in case. I also filed a trespassing report online. I then sat down and started typing this story. Not sure where this is going to go, but I'm going to see it through. I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback from people saying I should have just knocked on their door and had them move the truck, but I feel that I was right to have the truck towed. I already told them twice not to park on my property and it didn't stop, so this was the consequence. Five. Backstory for context. I had just left a hospital about a week or so ago due to really bad pain behind my knee. So bad that I couldn't sit, stand fully upright, walk, lay down, nor bend or fully straighten my leg. It came out of nowhere and got progressively worse every day that I ended up bedridden for 2 weeks. Also to note that even though the summer heat is coming to an end where I live, I drank plenty of cold water to the point where I'd have to get up every hour to use the bathroom throughout the day. The pain was so bad that I would lose the urge and would just lay in bed all day, not even wanting to get up to eat or pee because it was so bad and sensitive to the touch that any movement would make me wince. Doctors were baffled, so there was a CT scan and an MRI done, as well as bringing in an oncologist because I had a large mass of fat behind my leg, a tumor about the size of a football. Hearing oncologist almost brought me to tears as I feared for the worst. It turns out, what I thought was a really bad cramp was actually torn tendons and ligaments in my leg. I hadn't fallen or hit my leg against anything, which is what confused everyone, and the large mass was just a fatty tumor, nothing too serious according to the doctors and surgeon. No operation was done, it's not cancerous, and I was told in a few weeks the swelling would go down and my leg should heal naturally. I've been using a walker since discharge, and just recently the pain is much more tolerable that I no longer need it, but still use a walking cane because there's still a chance I could fall, and I won't risk it for a biscuit. Now that that's out of the way, on to the story. I've been given hydrocodone upon discharge for the pain, but only for 3 days as it's pretty strong, and one could possibly get addicted. So I've been taking Tylenol after my meds ran out, as it's the strongest OTC medicine I could get. I have to keep my leg either very still while laying down or constantly moving it, i.e. walking, as it hurts if I stand still for too long. This incident happened 2 days ago. Instead of sitting at home doing leg exercises in bed and waiting for my dad to bring me pain meds, I decided to go with him to keep myself moving, hoping it would help me, plus spending more quality time with him. We've had an on and off bumpy relationship. So we head to the pharmacy, and once we're there, I decided I wanted some jacket snacks. I informed my dad about this, and so he doesn't have to slowly follow me around, I suggest he go to get some quick groceries at the supermarket across the street. He agrees, and we go about our separate ways for a while. I go around with a basket and pick my stuff up along with pain meds, taking my time. Then head to the counter up front. This is where the entitled dad and his son come into play. The son was quiet the entire time, didn't say a word. As I'm standing in line, I put my basket down next to me and hold onto my cane. As mentioned before, it hurts to stay standing still for too long, and my hands start to wobble a bit as I'm struggling. Edie is behind me in line and makes a snide remark about me struggling to stand, saying how I should quit being a drama queen, you can wait. I turn to him and glare for a few seconds before replying, I have a bad leg, I can't stand for too long, in a deep, irritated tone before turning away. As I do, this man has the absolute nerve to walk over and pick up my basket and starts rummaging through my items. I turn and demand loudly, put my basket down now! To ensure I grab other people's attention. He scoffs and hands it to his son, who's about maybe 6 years old, and carrying their own basket, and keeps rummaging, picking out and commenting on my snacks, and gets to my pain meds.
What are you, some sort of junkie? What's with all the painkillers? You're getting off on these, aren't you?
There's only 3 other people in line who are either staring or trying not to get involved. I ignore his question and ask for my basket back. This angers ED, and he asks again in a much louder voice.
You're getting off on these, aren't you?
As he throws the stuff back into the basket. I'm almost up to the counter next. But I walk a bit closer as my leg was now starting to feel a bit stiff and ask once again for my basket. Edie shouts, "Fine!" And as I hold my hand out to grab it, he, instead of handing it to me, throws it towards me. I'm only 5'7", and this man was about 6 foot something, pretty tall guy, and threw it at chest height as if tossing a basketball. So basically, he tossed it at my head. I put my hands up not to catch it, but to block it from hitting me in the face. As soon as it hit me, I was knocked backwards, stumbling with my leg in pain from the sudden movement as I tried to catch my balance or grab onto something, anything, so I wouldn't hit the floor. If I had fallen against the counter, it would have been much better as I'd still be standing. But I fell straight on my butt and onto my back. The rope around my wrist from my cane, coupled with the momentum, made the cane spin back and I landed on it with my right arm. I can't tell you how much I screamed and cried in agony as I fell and lay there trying to move my body to my right side. I can't even sit down normally without pain, and have to lean most of my body to the right whenever I sit down on the toilet seat, at the dinner table, or even sitting upright on my soft mattress. Any weight or pressure on my leg makes it hurt, and it's uncomfortable and gives me backaches. So landing hard, straight down was absolute hell. The other customers, as well as the cashier and store manager, started shouting at the guy while trying to help me up. I declined, wanting to stay on the floor, as it'd be much better than if I was sitting or standing, and demanded loudly for cops to be called, and not to let the man go. As I was sure as shit going to be pressing charges, Edie doubles down and shouts back at everyone else.
"I mean, look at him, he's exaggerating, he's not hurt. Look at all these pain meds."
Walks to my basket, takes my stuff out.
"He's buying. He's probably getting high off of these."
How in the fuck?
"No one person needs this many Tylenol. He's an addict. He doesn't even need this."
He proceeds to kick my cane away, but the strap is still around my wrist.
"It's all fake. It's an act."
As he's finishing his stupid speech, his voice is starting to shake as I'm guessing he's realized he's not gonna win this one. He goes and grabs his son's hand, puts his basket down, and tries to speedwalk out of the store, muttering something along the lines of,
"Come on, Todd, we don't need this, we'll go to another store."
But one customer blocks his path, as well as the manager who's already on the phone with the dispatcher, and saying officers are on their way. Upon hearing this, Edie bolts, dragging his kid along, and shoves the customer blocking his path into the metal detector near the entrance. Edie stumbles as a woman with her child in a stroller start to walk in. Edie is dancing left to right, trying to get past the woman, who's now just standing there confused as to what's happening. The shoved customer gets back on his feet, runs up to Edie, spins him around 180, and tackles him to the floor, keeping him pinned. Fast forward to my dad coming back and asking what the hell happened. I explained, as well as the other customers and manager. Police arrive after a while, and everyone starts to explain what happened. Statement was given, charges were pressed, and the ED was taken in cuffs to the back seat of a squad car. His son stayed behind and would be picked up by his aunt. The only thing he said was, "I'm sorry," before we left. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Impractical Proudness of Parents, iPop, episode 70. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and share the video around to all your friends and family. And perhaps, regarding story number 2 there, tell me what your favorite thing about Star Wars is, and why is it Star Trek? And before we go on, I have a little shout out to give to the author of the final story. That was the story with the poopy dad setting a bad example for his kid by assaulting a person with an injury. And that goes to Sugary Space Sprinkles. Excellent name. Thank you very much, Sugary Space Sprinkles, for allowing us to use your story. And I hope if you're not feeling better now, you will be feeling better soon. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.